Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. I gotta sit there and say that this episode was actually pretty good. This episode was actually pretty good. Um, and it's weird because I haven't sat down in a while because it really hasn't been good in a while. But let's start off with Chase, Michael, and Willow. I I felt so bad for Chase throughout this entire episode because you got Michael and Willow just upstairs just having sex. And I'm just like, okay, so Willow, you felt so bad about what happened to your child that I guess the only medicine, the only way you could sit there and just really get through the day is to have sex with Michael. That was just the instant cure. Okay. Um then you got Chase and you got Austin at the gatehouse. They start to walk in and 1 second. So they start to walk in, and Chase is all like, he's calling out her name, and she's not answering. So they walk in a little bit more, and oh man, you know, when he started to find pieces of his clothes, he was like, that's Michael's shirt. What's it doing on the floor? He's asking these questions, even though he knows, like, this isn't good. He can't find Willow. Michael's shirt is on the floor. And then Austin, he picks up the belt, and the look on his face was just like, wow. It was bad. I genuinely felt so bad for him. Because they're upstairs, and they're talking about him. And, at this point, Chase is like, yo, I want to go up there right now. Austin's like, yo, that's a bad idea. You don't. Like, there's a difference between knowing and seeing it. You don't want that. And plus, on top of it, he's like, you don't want to sit there and walk up the stairs, hurt your body, set yourself back. You don't want them to sit there and do that to you. So, Michael and Willow are upstairs, and I'm going to be honest, I was just like, oh my goodness, you two are such trash. You're such trash. You're sitting there talking about Chase, and you're all like, we're gonna be together one day, and we're gonna sit there and tell him, when he's ready, when he's able to walk. And at first, here's the thing. Michael, Willow was feeling guilty, like always. But I mean, about this particular part, and Michael was like, listen, it was really bad times, like. We couldn't tell him. He was almost about to die at one point. He lost his ability to walk the next point. There really was not a good point. And I'm sitting there thinking, I can give them the dying part. The dying part, I can give them. It sucks, but I can give them the dying part. Because they literally thought that he was going to go, and at that point, it wasn't going to matter. But once he was okay and he couldn't walk, all that went out the window. So the whole talk about trying to make each other feel better is just like, well, really, Michael, let's be very fair. Michael was there trying to make both of them feel better. And I'm just like, wow. Like, just, huh. So at this point, they put on their clothes. Michael's like, oh, where's my pants at? Where's my belt at? I'm like, bro, you should just be lucky that no one else walked upstairs. They head back to, the house. And at this point, I'm like, well, what is Austin's angle? Because I can't really exactly figure him out. At one point, he seemed like he's trying to just talk to him, kind of calm him down, and be like, all right, what's your plan? What are you going to do? This sucks. Just kind of just really listening to him. And man, Chase is just like, if they're together, they're not together just to be together. They're together because they actually have feelings for each other, And, Austin's just like, well, what's your plan? What are you going to do? I'm sitting there looking at this like, okay, which way is Austin going to sit there and stare Chase into? Is he going to egg him on? to like get revenge? Is he gonna sit there and just be like, hey, listen, you sit there and, you know, kind of calm him down? Like, what is his angle? Because I feel like, I feel like he's gonna sit there and try to push him for revenge. That's what I feel like. Just the way he was sitting there talking. That's just pretty much where, yeah, that's pretty much where I figure it's gonna go. I mean, that's just a guess, but yeah. I just can't figure Willow out sometimes. You know, she has all this opportunity to sit there and tell him, and you're just like, no, I'm not gonna do that. But I'm gonna go upstairs and have sex with his friend, and like. Even Michael, and it's so weird because Michael has never been this type of character. At least I don't think he's been. But now it's just like, well, you know, we're just doing what we're doing and it's fine, and, you know, we're just doing it behind his back. And it's just, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of irks me. No, it doesn't kind of, it irks me. Because he was so self-righteous when it came towards, what Chase and Sasha did. You know? Even a whole little cheap shot at the gym. And mind you, they only did that so that way he can get custody. But now you're going to sit there and go behind his back and do that to him. It's just, it's so... I'm so trying not to curse, but it's so messed up. And I'm not going to lie, to some extent I was kind of just like, why is Carly still there? Like, I felt like she just... I understand why she was there. But I also felt like her presence wasn't really needed that long. Like, she said a couple of things, but it was just like, whatever. Now let's talk about the whole Nixon Falls side story thing with Nina. Because I was just like, alright, Nina, what are you going to do? You got to sit there and FaceTime with Wiley. You hear Carly in the background. Sonny's coming towards the phone. I'm just like, what are you going to do? What's your plan? And of course, I guess she cuts it off or whatever, saying that she had bad cell phone reception or whatever. And I was just like, I wondered how she managed to do that. Like, how did she manage to just cut off the phone and be like, oh, it was an accident? I really want to see that, but they didn't really show it. They were just like, oh, well, you know. And especially because Sonny was like, oh, I want to sit there and talk to him. I want to talk to the little guy. Like, what are you going to do, Nina? The wall's is closing in. The closing in, what are you going to do? Oh, you dodged a bullet, but you're going to keep going. And I mean, at this point, it's just, I don't know. Some of that stuff was like when you was talking about Phyllis and Nina and her family and how she, you know, isn't close to her family anymore because of stuff that happened. I was like, alright, that's great, but I don't really care. I mean, I think that's like a good message for people who, you know, as far as, you know, had a falling out with their families or whatever, just to kind of just keep in touch, or to keep trying and stuff. But other than that, I was just like, alright, but I don't really care about that. And the only other thing that really happened was Phyllis was there talking about how she met up with Valentine in New York City. And at first, you know, like, she was already, like, really nervous and scared and stuff like that. And I'm just like, Nina, the walls are closing in on you, boo. They're closing in on you. What are you doing? And of course, she keeps going with this charade. And, you know, she's talking to Sonny, and she talks about her ex and everything like that. And I'm just like, Nina, I am enjoying, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not enjoying this part, but I am enjoying how you were just carrying on like this is a typical Tuesday, and you're just like, alright, cool, let me just keep this going. Like, nothing's going to wind up happening. And it's funny, too, because, you know, Sonny's like, you know, your last ex showed up here. Do you think your other ex is going to sit there and show up here and I got to sit there and take him down or something? I'm just like, what are you going to do if Valentine shows up? Now, Valentine's at the party and he's talking to Brooklyn, and Brooklyn's like, are you going to go down there? And he was like, I didn't even consider it or whatever. And I'm just like, well, what are you going to do, Valentine? Because now you have this whole thing with Anna, but you're still pining after Nina? Like, what is going on? I don't... I mean, are they even still doing a thing with Anna and Valentine, or is that just like just dead in the water? Like, what is going on with that? Um, I don't know. But let's talk about Jordan and Curtis. So Jordan comes to that, she comes to the to Kelly's or whatever, and at this point she wants to fight for her marriage. She's like, let's try to give this another shot. Let's not go through a divorce. Let's go through a counseling. This, that, and third. Let's try to make it work. And at this point, Curtis is like, yeah, no, nah, we can't do it. And it pretty much just comes down to trust. He was like, I don't trust you anymore. At first, Jordan's like, is it Portia? Like, is Portia the reason why? And I'm like, does it matter? And I know that sounds kind of harsh for me to say, but I'm like, if it is Portia, then what? Like, here's the thing with Curtis, and I can't knock him for this one. I can't knock him for not wanting to get back together with Jordan to try to make things work. Their marriage was. There's a lot of people that side with Curtis as far as Jordan lying to him, keeping things from him, and all that stuff. And then I look at it, as far as Curtis is concerned, no one's perfect, and to be honest, I felt like he kind of just checked out a long time ago, even before the whole divorce thing got started. Like, before there was even sitting there talking about divorce papers and stuff. Like, I felt like he just checked out of the marriage, which is fine, but my whole thing is I didn't like the way that Curtis went about it. Even as far as like ending his marriage and stuff like that. Like, there was one point where he was like, it was an episode when he was I think they was at this Avoid. It was somewhere. He was like, you want to do one last dance? And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? This woman's heart is broken, shattered into a million pieces, and your dumbass is just like, you want to have one last dance? So, yeah, I didn't really like the way he... that was so irritating. Yeah, but I just didn't like the way he was going about it as far as ending his relationship. But, at the end of the day, it's his choice. And he was like, yo, this, like, we're not doing this. We're done. And with that being said, Jordan's like, all right, well, I got to go. And at one point, it looked like Curtis was going to be like, no, don't leave yet, or something. And I was like, Curtis, just shut up and let her keep walking. Because anything that you say after that is just extra and it's unneeded. And, she walked out. Here's the thing, I felt bad for Jordan. But I'm glad that she got to say her piece. She got to sit there and say her piece, and she doesn't have regrets. She can sit there and say, you know what, listen, I fought for my marriage. I gave it one last try. I really sit there and try to talk to him and try to convince him to, not go through with it. But it is what it is. So I can respect her for doing that. And there's another woman that I want to sit there and respect. Portia, because Stella was just going on in. She was like, da 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 da, and it was just like, oh, well, you did this, like, you don't want to be the other woman, and yada yada yada, and just really just being extremely judgmental and extremely, just words that I'm not gonna sit there and say. But finally, Portia just had enough. Portia was like, who are you? This has nothing to do with you. This is between me and Curtis. And I am so glad that she finally had enough of Stella's goddamn mouth. Because at some point, somebody has to sit there and start yelling at this woman. And at this point, I think everyone knows that I do not like Stella. And Unfortunately, with women like her, you can't sit there and be nice about it. You have to sit there and fight fire with fire. You have to sit there and raise your voice to get your point across, because she's not the type of woman that you could just sit there and be soft spoken and just kind of say a couple words. Like, no, you got to really sit there and be like, yo. Especially when she was like, yo, you're talking to me like I'm a little teenager. I'm a grown ass woman. The hell is wrong with you? And I'm so glad that she was like, yo, whatever goes on between me and him is between us. Period. But with that being said, of course, Trina overheard everything. Now, I was sitting there reading the comments and stuff like that, and I know some people were sitting there saying, yesterday, because I was like, this is all Stella's fault. And I did misspoke. Okay, I did misspoke, because Portia could have just laid that whole thing to rest a while ago, even before she talked to Stella, and she didn't. So yeah, that responsibility does go on Portia. But let's be honest, Portia didn't sit there and think that she was going to be running into Stella again, coming at her again in such a public area. And not only that, and not only the fact that Trina overheard that, but anyone at her job could have overheard overhear that. I go back to when Stella was going at Jordan in the police station in front of all of her colleagues. And this is the first Jordan, or the original Jordan. And even Jordan was like, yo, you really gotta sit there and do this like right here and right now? And Stella was like, oh, what? You don't want your colleagues to sit there and know? No. Sweetheart, no, because I actually have a job, I have a career. Do you have one? Like, what are you doing? Like, I looked at that, I was like, would you want somebody to sit there and come to your job and start practically reaming you out in front of all your colleagues? That is just embarrassing. And so the fact that she did that again with just no qualms, it's just like, yeah, I really can't stand that woman. I really can't. And I'm just like, anyone could have overheard that. But I'm so glad that she put her in her place. Of course, Trina overheard, and she just walks off. She walks off, and, I guess another staff member was like, yo, listen, you got a patient that's been calling for you. So Portia was like, yo, I can't even sit there and tend to my daughter because, well, I'm still at work. Stella was like, do you want me to go? No. Hell no. And that's literally what she told her. She was like, yo, stay away from my daughter. Period. I don't exactly remember what she said, but she was like, yo, you already did enough. Because Stella was like, well, what can I do? Are you serious? Are you serious? The look on her face, what can you do? I'm going to sit there and try to keep this as not as nice as I possibly can, and I'm not going to sit there and really kind of get into what I'm really thinking about right now. But the point is, she was like, yo, you did enough. And she walks off. Now Stella, upset, crying and stuff like that, runs over to Kelly's or whatever and talks to Curtis. It's like, oh, I made a mistake. I was like, really? Stella, you made a mistake? I had to rewind that a good 10 times because I just want to hear her actually say it. I am such a petty person. I am. I'm not even joking. I really did rewind that 10 times because I just want to hear her say it because, well, I'm a dick and I'm petty, so, Curtis just has that look like, what did you do now? And the last scene, because I did this twice, is the whole Trina and Spencer scene. Because Spencer started off acting extra. Like, just extra dickish. You know, when he was sitting there talking to Cam and Jocelyn. I mean, Cam and, Cam and Jocelyn. And, you know, Jocelyn was sitting there picking Cam up so that way they can go to the party. And, you know, Spencer was just making a bunch of snarky remarks and just, like, I guess being a dick or whatever. Up until the point where I guess they was just like, alright, we got to go. We don't feel like dealing with you anymore. So Spencer's there. He's eating his food. He's complaining about it, just being a snob or whatever. Trina walks by. She's upset. She's crying. They talk about what happened, you know, as far as, you know, Portia, the affair and everything like that, lying to her. And she's upset about it. And Spencer, surprisingly, gave her some really good advice. You know, and pretty much just told her that, you know, your mom isn't just your mom. She's human. She's flawed. And he kind of brings up his experience as far as, like, you know, how things, you know, happened between him and his dad. And I was just like, wow, that was surprising. Because literally for the first few minutes, he's sitting there just being just a dick and snobbish and just like, man, it's so good to see you. And then the next minute, he's practically having a "this is us" moment and gave her some really good advice. And she was like, all right, you know, thank you or whatever. And she walked off. And I'm like, so, just going into future episodes, which version am I going to get of him? Am I going to get the, the dickish version, or am I going to get the one that's a little wise and surprisingly kind? I just don't know. And granted, I didn't really watch, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't really a fan of the younger Spencer. And granted, I get it, you know, with age does come a bit of maturity. But all of his scenes so far has just been like, hell, even when Jocelyn and Cam got to the party, it was like, yo, is he just like being like extra more than normal as far as him just being annoying and stuff? So that's why I was like, what? But I think that's about it. I'm not gonna lie, this episode was, and I said this before, this episode was actually good. And it hasn't been this good in a while. And I think that's partly because of the fact that Chase found out what Willow and Michael was sitting there doing behind his back. But, you know, they're sitting there trying to justify it, and, you know, Michael's sitting there trying to, you know, talk about it like, talking about it in a way where it's supposed to, like, ease their conscience. And I'm just like, bro, are you kidding me? This man literally is in a wheelchair, mad and upset that he can't walk. And y'all two are literally in the same house, just bumping and grinding like, you know, and then having their little justifiable talks afterwards like it's just supposed to sit there and okay it. Like, Oh, man, I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, and I've been saying this so many times, but I was like, I felt so bad for Chase, and I'm like, Michael, you're kind of being trash right now, you know? And also a big hypocrite. And Willow, it's funny because Willow's like, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. And I'm like, welcome to the club. Because lately, I don't know what you're doing either. I really don't. You know, I do have to ask a question. How does everyone feel about Willow so far? I asked that question because a couple months back I was sitting there going online looking at Soap Opera Digest or whatever. I was reading something, and it was like, you know, the two most hated people, whatever, are Sasha and Willow, and I was like, really? Like, I really couldn't understand why. But now I don't think that Willow deserves as much hate as she get, but like, I just don't get that woman sometimes. She's very, every now and then she'll have her bright moments where she's actually good, but it's moments like that, like moments like today where it's just like, oh, what the hell are you doing? You know? At one point she's seemed like she was getting, you know, I wouldn't sit there and say closer, but they were, as far as Willow and Willow's mom is concerned, it seemed like they were on a better path, like maybe being somewhat comfortable enough to be in the same room. But, you know, Harmony comes over, you know, in the episode, and she's like, oh, what are you doing? I don't know how to act. Like, and granted, the sad thing is that what Harmony did was just vile. It was absolutely vile. And if Willow never wants to sit there and see or speak to that woman again, I would not blame her at all. You know? But it seemed like she was on that verge of, you know, getting on a better path with her mom. So I don't really understand, you know, what happened today or yesterday. And, you know, we could sit there and say, well, you know, it's because the anniversary of her baby's passing. I'm like, okay, cool. But that didn't affect her upstairs having sex with Michael. So I just, you know, things like that. I'm just like, I don't really understand you at all. I just, that's why sometimes it's like, I was like, well, I don't. Anyway, with that being said, I think that's about it. I'm gonna go. Thank you for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are on this episode. Let me know what your thoughts are on Willow, because you know, a lot of times I use the comment section to really kind of just help me focus my thoughts or whatever, or hear other people's perspective of the character, and it kind of gives me some insight a little bit, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like it does. Anyway, with that being said, I'm going to go. Thank you for watching. Be safe. I will see you in the next video.